Ready to design the home you've always imagined? Sarandis will help you realise that dream. An award-winning premier building and home design firm based in Perth, Sarandis will make your journey their inspiration, from your very first personalised consultation, and craft you a bespoke home that's tailored to your lifestyle, vision and dreams. Visit sarandis.com.au to be inspired. Sarandis, proud sponsors of the Ouzo Talk podcast. There's no Ouzo Talk without a bottle of Ouzo, which is why we love the Greek providore. Get a real taste of the very best produce that Greece has to offer. From olive oils and delicious artisan sweets to unique spirits, earthy herbs and memorable wines. Visit thegreekprovidore.com.au to see their amazing range. The Greek Providore, proud sponsors of the Ouzo Talk podcast.
Sound is.
It is probably the most interesting and at the same time most pertinent issue for Greek console here, I think. I wouldn't go as far as saying that it is in danger, but it is, in a sense, being challenged. Greek and enrollments in schools, they're gradually reducing. The numbers are falling. You could argue, so what? Because I've heard this argument. Some people have told me here that our identity is not defined by language. I can feel Greek Australian, listen to Greek music, visit Greece once a year, follow Greek football, and be equally Greek as someone who speaks the language. I'm not so sure. I understand the argument, but I feel that language is an overarching reality or principle that you can use as an instrument to make sure that the culture is retained in the future. So if we lose the language, I think it will be very difficult in the long run to keep the culture.
Why is it so important, in your view, that we should continue to learn the Greek language?
So the Greeks listening to me who, like you, live in Australia will perhaps know just how terrible linguicide, as it's called, is the death of languages. Greek is a connection to the land from which your ancestors came and from which they sprang, and it's also the language of Euripides and Sophocles and Plato and some of the most foundational and important thinkers and writers that the world has known. And to be born with a Greek surname, say, and to know that your names are Greek and your grandfathers and grandmothers will be, is an immense privilege, and it's one that you can repay by familiarizing yourself with the language, and it's really important to do.
Well, ladies and gents, welcome to what is the first Ouzo Talk debate. I can't believe we've finally gotten here, Nick. This has been, over a year in the making for us, hasn't it?
Definitely, Tom. Look, it's been way over a year, and we've finally done it. So we got our ducks in order and our Psiphos in order as well, which we'll explain what that is later. And here we are. We're ready to go. How good is this?
It's fantastic, and we're so blessed, genuinely, to have the people that we've got in this room. First and foremost, the Consul General of Greece here in Sydney, Gianniotis Malikoudis. Thank you so much for being here with your staff, and Natasha as well. Many representatives from the universities here in Sydney. Guys, thank you so much for being here. You guys are such an important part of, we think, this discussion, which is why we're so happy to be hosting you guys in what is a very unique space as well, isn't it, Nick?
Definitely. Look, it looks like a tough crowd out there, Tom, and I don't envy our debaters, so
that's right.
It's going to be a nice little challenge we've got happening.
That's right. And, there are more people in the room, obviously, who we have to thank. Nia Karteris, the chair of the Greek Festival of Sydney. Thank you so much for making time to be here. Who else is here that we haven't mentioned? The debaters, more than anything, I think.
I think so, yeah. Look, and shall we explain how we're going to vote today, or how we've already voted?
Yes, so we've already cast the first vote in a very ancient tradition, obviously in the same way that the ancient Greeks would have conducted this kind of vote way back thousands of years ago. You want to explain the rocks?
Sure. So we've gone back 500 BC in Athens, and the way we used to vote in a democratic way was you had white pebbles and black pebbles, and they were called psiphos.
We were just schooled on that. Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, I thought it was Psephor, but it's Psiphos. What it is, you get two rocks, two Psiphos, and you put your motion. So the white one represents the yes vote, and the black one represents the no vote. So the purpose of this is you go to a basket anonymously, put your vote in, and you discard your other one in another basket as well. So we've already done that. So it's a 2,500 year tradition. So we're going back to our roots, way back to our roots.
An honour to be able to do that. And so let's be reminded by what the motion is. So the motion that we have today, which our debaters, who we'll introduce in a moment, will be debating, is to Greek or not to Greek. The Greek language is essential to our Greek identity, and we have the results of the first vote.
Correct.
Now, we have a small but willing audience here today. Now, in favour of the motion, it's 8, and against the motion is 4. So the negative side has a little bit of work to do here, obviously, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens by the end of tonight. But let's just be reminded, this is fun, more than anything.
Was that sympathy votes?
We'll see how the swing is towards the end. We do have to thank a few people for making this episode possible. Sarandis Design over there in Western Australia, sarandis.com.au. If you haven't seen their designs, guys, even if you're looking to build a house or get a house designed, Sarandis is the place to go, sarandis.com.au. Thank you so much for jumping on board. And also, in addition to that, you may have noticed these glasses and this little bottle here that's on the table. These come courtesy of Tableware by Luxury down in Melbourne, and it is a set specifically for Ouzo, isn't it, Nick?
Correct.
And there's a little Mediterranean map there as well. So,
but we need to put something in it too, don't we, Tom?
We do. There's plenty of Ouzo down the back here, which has been supplied to us by our major sponsors here, the Greek Providore.
Correct.
We've been on board since the very beginning, haven't they?
Exactly. So thank you, Crystal, and the Greek Providore. Beautiful wines as well we got up there. And
she spoilt us today. There's wines, there's tsipuro, there's Ouzo, there's everything there. The GreekProvidore.com.au, guys. Make sure you're jumping on board. It's the place to get all of your premium Greek produce, isn't it?
Correct. Also, and the winners have a prize as well from the Greek Providore too, I hear.
Well, possibly. We'll see what happens at the end. We'll see what these guys produce.
See what happens. So thank you, Greek Providore.
Okay, so quick introduction. We do have some amazing debaters with us. Patricia Koromvokis from Macquarie University, welcome. James Adonopoulos from Kaplan as well. So these are the academics, obviously, and the lawyers, Theodora Gianniotis on one side, and James Arkoudis as well.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so just a quick reminder, guys, if you're going to speak into the microphone, you need to be about a fist or so away, so get nice and close. Now, to do the first formal introduction, Nick, can you do the honours for Patricia, who will be our first debater?
Right. Dr. Patricia Koromvokis is a lecturer in global cultures and languages in the School of International Studies at Macquarie University. She also serves as the head of one of the largest global examination centres of the Certificate of Attainment in Greek. Dr. Koromvokis is a linguist specialising in second language acquisition and intercultural communication, and has received the Vice-Chancellor's Commendation of Academic Excellence for her doctoral thesis, and was finalist in the Greek International Women Awards 2023 in the Education of Psychology and category. She is at the forefront of initiatives, research projects and international collaborations aimed at innovating language and culture education. Round of applause for Patricia.
Thank you very much.
So we have 8 minutes on the clock. Nick, if you could put that on your phone there. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Kalispera se όλους. I would like to firstly state that our team strongly affirms the position that Greek language is an essential component of the Greek diasporic identity. We are not saying that every person of Greek descent must speak perfectly Greek to feel a connection to the heritage, but we are arguing that language is a core part of the diasporic Greek identity, and without it, something essential is lost. But what is identity and what is diaspora? And which are the identity markers that shape and define the diasporic identity? Basic concepts on which James and I have built our solid arguments. So identity is a multidimensional construct, both individual and social, involving individuals' own inner sense of who they are, how they represent themselves to others, and how they are recognized and represented. Diaspora, a Greek word, is defined as people who have migrated away from the homelands, as well as their descendants, but who maintain a connection to their country. How? With the identity markers. Identity markers are both internal and external factors that influence how someone perceives themselves and how they are perceived by others, such as religion, of course, language, history, tradition, values, culture, food, and of course, ties with homeland. Over 40% of people of Greek origin live outside Greece, in places like Australia, Canada, and the United States, preserving the language and culture to varying degrees. As Greek-born migrants decrease in diaspora communities, later generations develop hybrid identities shaped by diverse values, and this is normal. Visits to Greece and experiences with Greek language influence how these individuals perceive their identity and sense of belonging. Having said that, and to strengthen my team's case, I will briefly present findings from studies where Greek Australian participants shared views on their identity, highlighting the key role of language because today's debate should reflect what Greek Australians believe and not what we think on their behalf. So studies highlight the central role of language in shaping Greek Australia identity. Giorgas in 2008 found that Greek language and religion were the key markers of Greek identity, with a lack of language weakening one's sense of being Greek. Arvanidis in 1999 showed that 58% of Australian-born students consider language the most important identity factor above customs and church. And you may say in 1999 we're speaking about another Greek community. But in 2015, Avgoulas and Fanani confirmed through interviews with Greek Australian families in Melbourne that language continues to be a primary identity marker for Australian-born Greece. No one can argue against the fact that Greek language is a key part of the diasporic Greek identity. Can you imagine a Greek community in Australia where Greek is not spoken? So, even if someone doesn't speak Greek fluently, language still plays a symbolic and emotional role. Having your grandmother, your yaya, call you agapimu, or singing along to a song in a Greek concert or a wedding gives you a sense of belonging, and that is hard to replicate in translation. Language becomes this invisible thread that ties generations across time and space. In addition, language is the primary tool for preserving Greek culture, values, and tradition. Culture is not just food, festivals, and dance. It's also literature, music, religion, humor, and worldview. And all these are shaped and expressed through language. Language, it is not just a vehicle of communication. It is a carrier of culture and values. Without language, we are left with fragments. And of course, you need examples to truly grasp this, and James will share some from his own personal experience. But as an academic, I will have to highlight the fact, before I conclude, that Greek language education in the diaspora is facing serious challenges. And this is a call to innovate. Greek language institutions like schools, universities across the diaspora are seeing declining enrollments. Why? Because the profile of today's Greek youth, of course, is different from the generation of our grandparents who migrated in Australia in the 50s and 60s. Our grandparents came to Australia with a strong connection to the homeland and used Greek every day. Their children often grew up bilingual. But today's children are third or fourth generation. Their daily lives are in English, and that's completely normal. The Greek is often limited, and their connection may be more symbolic than practical. But this is precisely why maintaining even a beginner's level of Greek language is important. Greek as a language is complex and rich in history. That makes it challenging, but it also means that even learning the basics is valuable. Using Greek at home or in the community, even in simple phrases at beginner's level, gives children a sense of continuity and identity. And don't forget the research also shows that bilingualism has significant cognitive, academic, and social benefits. Bilingual children often develop better memory, problem-solving skills, and mental flexibility. So yes, we as educators, community leaders, and families must rethink how and why we teach Greek and why kids should learn Greek. So you are not less Greek if you don't speak the language, but your experience of being Greek, allow me to say, is weaker, πιο αδύναμη. The Greek language is not just a skill, it's a lifestyle, it's a living link to our past, our culture, and our future. So our team affirms that language is essential, not optional, for preserving Greek language in the diaspora. So the Greek language in the diaspora isn't dying, but it's transforming, and this is good. Our challenge is to ensure its survival by making it relevant, accessible, and meaningful to new generations. Thank you very much.
Well done, Patricia.
And what fantastic timing. Just under 8 minutes. Fantastic. Great start. Now, we are obviously going over to the negative side now, and our first debater for the negative is Theodora Gianniotis, who is obviously a lawyer. Let me introduce her to you. Theodora is a highly experienced New South Wales lawyer and cultural heritage specialist with over 20 years of experience in property conveyancing, planning, heritage and local government law, with a master's in environmental law and a strong background in project management. She's also the host of the Home and Finance podcast to boot. So Theodora, 8 minutes are now on the clock. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I am the first speaker of the negative team, introducing our argument. The debate question asks whether Greek language is essential for Greek identity. My learned friend and I argue that it is not. I will focus on the diaspora experience, assessing whether language is truly necessary for us to be Greek. My learned friend will explore the historical role of language, and was it only language that traditionally separated Greek from the others? Ultimately, we will conclude that Greek identity is defined not by language alone, but by an inherent intergenerational pride in our historic love of freedom to express who we are. As a child of a second wave of Greek diaspora, attending Greek school was a defining part of our identity. Unlike our peers who played sports after school, we were the wogs who lugged our bags to Greek afternoon school. We were often teased and bullied. Treatment that by today's standard would make headlines and spark calls for intervention, yet we endured it together. Greek school did not just teach us the language. It taught us what truly made us Greek: connection. We shared the same food, danced the same steps, attended the same churches, and celebrated with large Greek name day parties. Our cousins were our best friends. We were Greek Australians, and while language was part of that experience, it was not essential, merely another cog in the Greek identity wheel. Beyond our own circles, we encountered another group of Greek Australians, those who spoke little Greek but were deeply passionate about their Greekness. Many of their parents grew up in rural towns with limited access to Greek churches or schools. Yet their sense of identity remains strong. In fact, their grandparents, the first generation Greek migrants, built the schools and the churches we attended. Many married outside the community, and while language dwindled, their Greek identity did not. Why? Because Greek identity transcends language. It is easy for someone from Greece to dictate what makes a person Greek, but they do not share the lived experience of being Greek Australian or Greek diaspora. The diasporic experience demands that identity is more than words. No matter where in the world you go, you will find a Greek community. Some fluent in Greek, others less so, but bound by cultural markers: faith, cuisine, music, dance, history, and the legacy of democracy and freedom. Consider this: many of us, our children and grandchildren, will not marry Greeks. Imagine telling them, if you don't speak Greek, you cannot identify as Greek. Why would we do that? The diasporic experience allows us to be ambassadors of our culture, sharing cuisine, music, traditions, and perhaps even language. Why should those descendants not be considered Greek if they do not speak fluent Greek? Yes, language is part of the identity, but is it essential? That is the question today. We of the negative argue no. We take pride in being Greek because we share a deeper connected identity, a history of freedom, eleftheria e thanatos, freedom or death. This fundamental belief was defined Greek identity for centuries. In Australia, the Anzac story connects our two nations. When Australians saw Greeks resist oppression with ohi, they recognised a kindred spirit, people who value freedom above all. The Anzacs fought alongside Greeks, admiring their resilience. Being Greek means being free, to dance, to believe, to speak, and to breathe our culture, a culture we are proud of. Let me offer a real example. This Easter, we attended Newtown Church. As the epitaph passed through King Street, one of the most diverse streets in Australia, everything stopped. DJs silenced their music. Shopkeepers stepped outside to watch in reverence and stillness. I turned to my 16-year-old daughter, who hardly speaks Greek, and asked, "How does this make you feel?" I thought she was going to say embarrassed. She answered simply, "Greek." Why? Because she understands that Greekness is about freedom to practice our faith, embrace our culture, and express our heritage in our own way. When we attended Greek school all those years ago, our parents were teaching us to be proud of being different. We did not just learn the language, we absorbed our religion, customs, and history. We learnt about the women of Messaloniki and Spartans and countless stories of courage and sacrifice. We memorised the Greek national anthem, not just in Greek, but with a deep understanding of its meaning. Is the Greek language important? Yes. Is it essential to Greek identity? No. No one, especially anyone who has not experienced life as a diaspora Greek, can tell our children that they are any less Greek or a weaker Greek simply because they do not speak the language fluently. Their Greekness is rooted in freedom, the freedom to express their identity however they choose. Cultural identity is multifaceted and complex concept that goes beyond language. Focusing solely on language may oversimplify the intricate layers of identity, neglecting other influential factors such as ethnicity and what clearly distinguishes us as Greeks. If we focus just on language, we're in danger of losing what makes us feel Greek. And with that danger, we may push many people away who feel Greek and wish to express being Greek in other ways outside of language.
Thanks so much, Theodora. Everyone's timed their speeches impeccably, by the way. We're off to a flying start.
I think we've at the cap really well, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Well, over to you, Nick.
Okay. Professor James Adonopoulos is the Academic Dean of Kaplan Business School, where he leads almost 500 faculty members across campuses in cities as well as online, and the teaching and learning strategy of a dozen diverse disciplines such as IT, analytics, accounting, health, tourism and project management. Under his academic leadership, the school became a self-accrediting authority, was named Business School of the Year at the Global Pioneer Awards, and in official government data is ranked among the top 5 business schools for postgraduate teaching quality. Nice. For 6 years, he has served as the National Board Director of the peak body of IHEA, Independent Higher Education Australia, and is currently the convener of the Teaching and Learning Network and the Gen AI Community of Practice. He is also regularly invited by the regulator and the Department of Education to represent the independent sector on various reference groups. Well done, James. Welcome.
James, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this important conversation, and I'll make my contribution from the perspective of someone who is not from Greece, who was born here and raised here and was 23 years old before he ever visited Greece for the first time. The motion before us is the Greek language essential to our Greek identity, sits at the heart of what it means to belong, not just to a community, but to a legacy. And it also sits at the heart of who we are, not as individuals, but as a global people. So I'm particularly honoured to be reunited this evening in partnership with my former teacher, Dr. Patricia Koromvokis from Macquarie University, where as a mature age student I had enrolled in a bachelor's degree in modern Greek studies. And I still fondly recall my very first teacher at Macquarie, Dr. Elizabeth Kefalinos, who at the beginning of the first class of the first subject, Greek 101, asked us to share the reason why we had decided to enrol in bachelor level Greek studies. I will share my reason with you later on in my opening remarks. For now, I can't help but pick up on my colleague Patricia's comments regarding the word diaspora, and I'm wondering whether our respected colleagues on the opposing team have detected the irony. Here we are publicly debating whether the Greek language is essential for the Greek diaspora, when that very word, diaspora, is in itself derived from the ancient Greek word diaspiro, which means to spread or to sow or to scatter. So with that in mind, τώρα θα διασπείρω 4 interconnected truths that will demonstrate that the Greek language is indeed essential, not just important, but essential to our Greek identity. The first truth is that language is not neutral. It shapes how we see the world, what we value, how we relate, what we notice. In Greek, there are words that simply cannot be translated to English or any other language without losing something essential. Let's contemplate for a moment just how fortunate we are. It is a privilege to be Greek, knowing that we inherit one of the most beautiful, expressive and passionate languages on this entire planet. A language so special that it comprises words that are completely unique. How can we squander that linguistic inheritance by rendering it not just unimportant, that would be bad enough, that would be scandalous enough, but as non-essential? Take philotimo. It's not just about honour or pride or duty, it's a uniquely Greek constellation of virtues: kindness, dignity, sacrifice, moral obligation. Or gephi, which isn't just about joy and fun. It's a spirit, a life-affirming energy that stimulates people to engage in spontaneous celebration, dancing, laughter. Xenia, the deeply rooted cultural obligation, the moral duty to welcome and care for strangers and guests. These words aren't simply linguistic curiosities, they're worldviews. When we lose the language, we lose access to these cultural lenses. How can anyone argue that Greek isn't essential to our Greek identity, when our Greek identity is inherently defined by such a richly unique and evocative vocabulary that deserves to be respected and admired and preserved rather than disregarded and discarded? The second truth is that language is the living bridge between generations. It's the thread that connects Gianniotis and Papudes to their grandchildren. It's through their words that they more effectively convey emotion and love. It's through their words that they tell stories, sing lullabies, share idioms, say prayers. These words constitute the Greek language, and when we let go of that language, when we no longer deem it essential to our Greek identity, that bridge between our grandparents and us weakens. The stories don't get told. The proverbs get lost. The jokes don't land. The intergenerational continuity becomes stuck, unable to advance. Which brings me to my opening anecdote regarding my first class of Greek 101, when my teacher asked us to share the reason we had enrolled in modern Greek studies. So here's mine. There are few people on this planet I could ever love as much as I loved my maternal grandmother, my yaya. She was a truly remarkable human being, and like many Greek grandmothers, she was devoted to her family. Caring, funny, wise, strong, resilient, and one day she passed away unexpectedly. All the emotions I experienced in the weeks and months and years that followed were typical of the emotions that everyone experiences as part of the grieving process. But there was one specific emotion that was more prominent than any other, and it was the emotion of regret. Regret that I was never able to have a meaningful conversation with her because her English was pretty much non-existent, while my Greek was similarly negligible. So even though I missed out on hearing her stories from her country of origin, Cyprus, whose dialect makes my heart sing every time I hear it, the truth is that what I missed pales into comparison to what she lost. She lost the opportunity to share her identity-defining stories with her grandchildren, the memories of her Greek Cypriot stories that were permanently lost the moment she died, never to be passed from one generation to the next in the same way. And I found that sad, I found it regrettable, and I vowed to never let that happen again with other family members. Now, it's possible our colleagues on the opposing team have grandparents whose fluency in the Greek language is sufficient. It's sufficient enough for that to not be an issue for them. But it is an issue for millions of members of the Greek diaspora. I see this whenever friends invite me to their family functions, at which, almost without exception, there's a yaya or a papu sitting alone. Not because their families don't care for them, of course they care, but because it's only so long their families can endure the extended silences and awkwardness that predominate the language barrier. But then I witness the subtle improvement in their disposition when I sit down and engage them in a conversation in their native language. Even if that conversation is brief, even if my Greek is imperfect, there is immediately an irrefutable identity-related connection. The third truth is that Greek has survived against extraordinary odds. Ottoman rule, war, migration, displacement. In every case, it was the language that sustained identity when everything else was under threat. Communities in Asia Minor, Egypt, southern Italy held on to their Greekness not just through rituals, but through speech. When borders disappeared, when institutions fell, it was the language that held the line. This tells us something profound. Greek is not just expressive, it is resilient. And our responsibility is to continue that tradition, not for nostalgia, but for cultural survival. Because the threat now is globalization. And this is not a criticism of globalization. There are simply implications associated with the dominance of the English language in business, media, and education for Greeks to assimilate. But surely if our ancestors were able to preserve the Greek language despite being confronted by the much more grave consequences of war and dispossession and displacement, surely we have a responsibility now to preserve the Greek language in the face of globalization.
Thank you very much, James. Now, on to our final speaker for the night on the negative side, before we go to 2 minutes of closing statements. Our final speaker for the negative side is James Arkoudis. James has over 30 successful years of litigation and commercial experience as a lawyer. He's worked in a diverse range of practices, as well as having been house counsel for a large listed property trust group and other commercial finance companies. James has broad experience in litigation matters and acted for numerous corporate clients, including mining companies, most recently in international arbitration. He's also served as a director, chairman and CEO of several ASX-listed mining companies and has extensive mining experience with both local and in African jurisdictions. He has a keen interest in history, philosophy and literature and holds undergraduate degrees in philosophy, history and law. James, there's 8 minutes on the clock. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, what do? Here I am in the narrow pass, Spartan hoplite, under attack, with overwhelming forces against me. And what do I have in front of me to defend myself and to make my point? I have rhetoric. I have sophistry. I have demagogy, even if I have to resort to that, and I shall. But let's begin. The first fallacy is this. Language is the medium. It's not the message. Our cultural message as Greeks is profound, large. It has dominated the Western world. We are the inheritance, our inheritance is the Western world. When I traverse the world and I go to different places, I can go to Accra in Africa, and I can go to the court and I can see an Ionian column. And I know that there is some semblance of justice there because that is my inheritance. And I can work with that and I can fit into that and I can be a part of that, participate fully, strongly. I do not need to speak Kini or ancient Greek or Byzantine Greek or ecclesiastical Greek or Demotic Greek or any other of the myriad versions of Greek that are available, some of which have become extinct, some of which still survive in some form or other. Facile arguments, but I'll make them very quickly. We have Arabic-speaking Greeks in Syria now through the Antiochian church who want to be recognised as Greek. They don't speak Greek. We're going to tell them they're not Greek? But that's not really the important part. Let's go a little bit back. Let's do an Hellenic Likadzi and go back and talk about old things, as she likes to often say. So, we have the passage in Herodotus from Demaratus, who defines Greek identity. And he says it consists of 4 things. It consists of blood, religion, language, and tradition. And Eleni, I think, also falls into that trap of making the omoglosso as the most important thing. It is not. Using the words of Margaret Thatcher, one of my favourite speakers, no, no, no. Let's get to the meat of the substance. You can be Greek, you don't have to speak Greek. But if we say that, we say, okay then, so what forms Greek identity? How can we say we are Greek? What composes a Greek? And we start with the big Greek topic, God. We have our ancient Greek gods, and then we are subsumed into the Judeo-Hebrew Christian paradigm. These things have similarities, but they also have a very significant difference, which is one that Stephen Fry alludes to in his podcast. So, Mr. Fry tells us about the creation story of humanity in the ancient Greek tradition. So, Prometheus creates man in the image of the Olympian gods. But of course they are sort of debased. They have no consciousness, they have no ability, they're just there to amuse Zeus. Prometheus feels sorry for them. He goes up to Zeus and says, well, how about we give them some fire? Fire being, of course, the symbolism for consciousness, right? How about we let them develop a little bit, right? And Zeus says, oh, no, we can't do that. they'll stop worshipping us. Prometheus nevertheless gives the fire. And what happens? God punishes Prometheus. He does not punish man. Man, and woman of course, then develops, creates a civilization, begins to have individualism. It is the roots of humanism. It's the roots of modern society. That's how that ancient culture developed and grew to these massive heights. Later, what happens? Okay, let's not go through the glories. We all know the glories. And, leading to Alexander, Hellenism, all those things, Sparta, the Persian Wars. I won't, because we don't have time to get into all that. Then what happens? We get taken over by the Romans. The Roman Empire comes. Now, if, say, the British are the ancient Hellenistic Greeks, then the Romans are the Americans. They come in, they take over Greek culture and debase it. The Olympics becomes the Colosseum. There is a vast underclass, and Greeks are part of that. We are then essentially, culturally, we win the culture war, but as a people, we are virtually enslaved. We fall. We start to relate more closely with our interactions in the Middle East, with Yahweh and the Jewish God, the Hebrew God who casts out humanity. They are fallen. They are inconsolable. They become amartoli, a word that probably doesn't even exist in ancient Greek. They need to redeem themselves. Then we get the Greek invention of Christianity. The Greeks, I'm going to run out of time, I'm afraid. But anyway, so a Greek is the tension that exists between the Judeo-Christian ethic and the ancient ethic. The ancient ethic was the one that liberated us in 1821. Από τα κόκαλα βγαλμένοι των Ελλήνων τα ιερά και σαν πρώτα αντριωμένοι. Χειροχέρε ελευθεριά.
Well, I think we can all agree that that's a fantastic first round of debate. What we're going to do now, before we head to the next round of voting, we're going to give 2 minutes to everyone to sort of make a final statement, maybe a rebuttal. Maybe we'll be a little bit lax with the time because I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So, guys, we might, I don't know, should we start go the same order? What do you think? Let's go the same order. We'll start with Dr. Patricia Koromvokis again. So 2 minutes roughly. We'll be lenient on this one, guys, because I think there's a lot to unpack. So
2 minutes Greek time.
Yes, that's right.
A bit of salsa.
Yeah, just to answer to James, the verb amartano there is in ancient Greek, so we can use it also. We use it in modern Greek, and it comes from ancient Greek. And I don't know if anyone is fluent in ancient Greek, Latin, etc., James. So the 2 minutes, yes. So tonight, James and I, we have tried to show that Greek language is not just a tool for communication, as the other team argued. It is a vital thread in the fabric of diasporic Greek identity. It connects generations, preserves cultural memory, and carries the humor, the values, the worldview that make Greek culture unique. We acknowledge that identity is not a matter of predetermined destiny. It is dynamic, it is multifaceted, and shaped by context and personal experience. Many in the diaspora may feel proud for the Greek heritage, without fluency in the language, and that is valid. But we argue that without the language, this connection becomes symbolic rather than lived, nostalgic rather than sustained. Even a basic knowledge of Greek language helps preserve that connection. It fosters a sense of belonging, strengthens community ties, our Greek-Australian community ties, and brings cognitive and cultural benefits. In a globalized world, as James said, where identities are constantly evolving, the Greek language offers a powerful anchor. It doesn't limit identity, but it deepens the identity, our identity. We don't have to teach Greek the way that it was taught in the 1970s. The world has changed, so must we. We now have digital tools, AI-powered apps, immersive learning environments, and cross-cultural exchange programs for the young generations. Greek can be taught through games, songs, podcasts, films, social media, meeting young people where they already are. And look some examples that are happening within our community across Australia. In Victoria, the Pharos Revitalizing Greek initiative is using creative approaches to reconnect community with the language. In South Australia, the Hellenic Studies Foundation collaborated with the Wingles to produce Greek language content for toddlers. Here in New South Wales, 2 weeks ago, the Greek-Australian Society strategic plan outlines language preservation as a key pillar for cultural sustainability. And at Macquarie University, we have established the largest Greek examination center in the Southern Hemisphere, a major step in recognizing language learning at all levels. So these initiatives prove that the problem is not the lack of interest from the Greek community to learn Greek or even to teach Greek, it's lack of access and modernization. That's where our focus should be. So we affirm that Greek language is not only important, it is essential to preserving Greek identity in the diaspora. And I would like to finish by posing to all of you and all of us a question again. Can you imagine a Greek diasporic community without Greek language? Thank you very much.
Theodora.
I will probably take more of a rebuttal than a speech because I'm more in the tradition of debates. So let's start with Stephen Fry. Multifaceted culture. That's what we're saying on the negative side. The Greek language has survived on the basis of a multifaceted culture. Language is a medium for this culture, and it is a privilege to know Greek language, and for those of us that can, we should. But I agree with Patricia that the diaspora has survived. Wherever you go in the world, you will find a Greek community. And again, it's not because of language. It's because language is the medium of this multifaceted culture, a culture that my learned friend to my left has advised has through ancient times the diaspora from Sicily to Afghanistan. If we look at Afghanistan and we all hail it, there's Greeks, a descendant from Alexander the Great, what has survived? Was it the language? No, it was the Gandhara art that we identify. We go to Constantinople, what has survived? The architecture. Is it the language? No, because it's multifaceted and our Greekness is expressed in many ways. That's what makes us different, and that's what we can't lose. If we simply focus on language, there's a possibility we could be pushing people away, and that's what we don't want to do, because the more people we bring within our circle, from there we'll catch a wider net of people that want to learn. I will go to my learned friend James on the other side of the table. He couldn't communicate in language to his grandparents, yet there was a connection of love. There was a connection that language went through the barriers, through culture. And that's what we need to hold on to. If Greek language is so essential, why are our churches speaking in English? Because if they lose the connection they will lose the Greekness. Let me see if I've gone through. Mentioned the Ottomans. Again, we're looking at architecture. We're looking at what happened during that occupation. Yes, there was the Grifoskolio, where they learnt language, but they learnt other things that was very important. And that's what we learnt when we went to Greek school. Yes, we did learn to kokoraki, and we said it over and over again. But there was something else that we learnt. We learnt those poems over and over again. And again, I agree with my friends on the affirmative team. We're facing a challenge as a diaspora. We are not being supported, but it's not just Greek languages, it's languages in general where we've got this globalisation. So we have to start, we're in such a unique position as Greeks because of this multifaceted culture that we have, that we can help our language survive through other things, music, poetry, yes, literature. But imagine if those beautiful books were only in Greek. Kavafi was only in Greek, you could only read it if you're Greek. What would that do to the whole world? If it was only in Greek, it wasn't in French, it wasn't in anything. We should be sharing. We're ambassadors. We connect through our culture. And language is a medium of that. And that, is it essential for our identity? No. Is it good? Yes. If you can do it, do it. But is it essential? No. And no one will tell our children in our diaspora that they are weaker or less Greek because they don't speak fluent Greek. I will not allow that to happen.
Very spirited there, Theodora. Thank you. James Adonopoulos.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Ready to design the home you've always imagined? Sarandis will help you realise that dream. An award-winning premier building and home design firm based in Perth, Sarandis will make your journey their inspiration. From your very first personalised consultation, and craft you a bespoke home that's tailored to your lifestyle, vision and dreams. Visit sarandis.com.au to be inspired. Sarandis, proud sponsors of the Ouzo Talk podcast.
There's no Ouzo Talk without a bottle of Ouzo, which is why we love the Greek Providor. Get a real taste of the very best produce that Greece has to offer. From olive oils and delicious artisan sweets, to unique spirits, earthy herbs and memorable wines. Visit thegreekprovidor.com.au to see their amazing range. The Greek Providor, proud sponsors of the Ouzo Talk podcast.
Anyone would think, listening to our respected colleagues on the opposing team, that Patricia and I have been arguing that the Greek language is the only way that the Greek identity can be expressed, when we haven't said that, we haven't intimated that, because we don't actually believe that. So to those who argue that you can be Greek without the Greek language, we agree with you. You absolutely can. It's just a diminished form of Greekness. So of course, Greek identity can survive in fragments. It can survive through food, music, and customs. But it's not the same, because in every diaspora community, from Melbourne to Montreal to Boston, Johannesburg, speaking Greek is an important and powerful act of connection. It doesn't have to be advanced or fluent. Even now, my Greek is imperfect. It's intermediate at best. So it can be imperfect, it can be fluent, it can be poor, it can be bastardized, it can be refined. None of that matters. All that we're saying is that people have enough of an understanding of the Greek language to truly feel the unparalleled sensation that emerges, the goosebumps that can appear when you find yourself thinking, I am part of this story and I am part of this legacy. Now, of course, many Greeks in the diaspora still feel deeply Greek without speaking Greek. We know that. But feeling Greek and fully understanding Greekness are not the same. Identity can exist without the language. We know that. It's just incomplete. What people can often feel is a reflection of traditions passed down, traditions that were originally transmitted through the Greek language. But over generations, without that language, that connection weakens. So the real question here is not whether Greek identity can survive without the Greek language, but what quality, depth, and longevity that identity has in the absence of the Greek language. And so we urge you to consider not only whether we can be Greek without the language, but whether we can truly understand, honour it, and carry Greek identity into the future without it. Greek identity is not an artefact for a museum, it's a living, evolving tradition. And like any living organism, it needs nourishment. The Greek language is that nourishment. It holds within it not just our past, but the power to shape our future as a global diaspora. So to say that Greek is essential to Greek identity is not to denigrate those who don't speak Greek. Most of my Greek friends cannot speak a word of Greek, right? And I love them profoundly. So we're not denigrating them at all. We're simply issuing an invitation to embrace a language that belongs to all of us, wherever we are in the world. Finally, it's worth emphasising that Greek is the language through which much of our cultural life is expressed. From liturgia, as mentioned, to laika, from festivals to theatre, the emotion, the pathos comes through in Greek. Yes, you can translate lyrics. Yes, you can subtitle a movie. But something pivotal is lost. The inflection, the idiom, the intimacy, the humour. Cultural expression becomes flattened because Greek is not just how we describe culture, it's how we feel it. It's like dancing azembekiko like vradiazi, with a smile on your face, because you don't actually realise it's a song about loneliness and despair. And we despair at the thought that the Greek language may become extinct because we don't feel it's essential.
Fantastic. James Arkoudis, bring us home.
Okay, a number of things very, very quickly there, just in respect of what James said. On the one hand, he says that we need to have a full understanding, but then that's a contradiction of the notion of just having some Greek. So we're talking about whether or not speaking Greek, knowing Greek is essential to Greek identity. That is the proposition. And that is where I think that my learned friend and I have made the case that it is not. I want to make a point about the not having a full understanding of things, and that's where I'd left off previously in Byzantium. The Byzantine Greeks basically got to a point where it was eventually became a theocracy, they became otherworldly, they cut out massive tracts of Greek learning. There was and later Turkokratia, the Turks come in and then totally squash everything. All progress stops. No Renaissance, no Enlightenment. We missed out, no Industrial Revolution. We missed out on all those things. And they were things that were culturally seeds that the Greek culture had planted that took root in the West. The other interesting point about Byzantium is that some of the Christians persecuted the pagans. The Academy of Plato was closed in 529 AD. But what happened there? That was the other Renaissance. Well, it wasn't a Renaissance, because what happened there is the teachers went east. And that was what created that era that some academics falsely claim was an Arabic contribution to culture. It was actually those Greek ideas, those Platonic ideas, which create the closed system of Aristotle, to have Sharia law. That all came from the Greeks. What happened though? We lost that. There was no Aristotle in Greek. We had to get him back. What was essential? It wasn't the language, it was the message. It was the ideas. It was the cultural content of those powerful, world-dominating ideas of syllogism, of rationality, of the golden mean that forms our culture. Our culture is not at risk. I can assure you of that. Greeks are not at risk of losing their culture. It is here and now. It imbues all of us, the entire West, all of the United States, all of Europe. The Greek language has got into Japanese. It's there. We're not going to lose it. I don't know how many countless thousands of Greek words are in the English language already. We now hold 10 libraries of Alexandria in the palm of our hand. It's not as crucial as it was for us to speak Greek to access Greek culture, thought, and spirit. That is the important thing for our children and grandchildren and everybody that we come into contact with, to know that they are Greek, that they have Greek heritage. And that is the important facet. And I agree. I don't cavil with anything that my learned friends have said. I totally agree with that, except for the fact of essentiality. It's not essential. It is preferable. It is good. It is something where, and the elites, academics who study these things can tell us about the nuances of the language and how each slight variation in meaning may have other massive consequences in philosophy, in art, in liturgy. But that's not essential. What is essential is to have the feeling, like my learned friend Theodora said when her daughter felt Greek when she saw the epitaphio. She didn't need to know all the words of, the actionesti to get that feeling. She still had it. And that's what I think is important. That's what is essential to Greek identity. Our individualism. We imbued all those thoughts, all of those ideas into the Western culture. We, as Orthodox Christians, we take orthodoxy very seriously. And that was in our history a two-edged sword, because we turned the other cheek. We loved our enemy. And that's what trapped us into 400 years of slavery. We had to reach back to a more militant time. Civilizations are not equal. If you are a pacifist, a person who believes in peace and love and harmony, try saying that to Genghis Khan. He will just slaughter you. And that is the harsh lesson that the Greeks had to learn. They had to be slaughtered in the Hagia Sophia. They had to learn that putting the Panagia on the walls does not save you. And that's why we had to bring back some of the classical ideas of our forebears who sacrificed themselves at Thermopylae and Salamis and Marathon. Why? For freedom. For our chance to express ourselves in art, in literature, in philosophy, in democracy, in all of those powerful Greek ideas. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you to all of our debaters, and I think everyone can agree here that we've heard some very interesting sides to this argument. And look, I should probably point out that the sides that these individuals are arguing on, they may not necessarily be the sides that they actually believe in. So just keep that in mind. And that sort of prefaces the the vote that we're about to have on this. Ultimately this is a debate. I would encourage you to sort of treat it as such. Obviously, try and leave the emotion out of it. We've seen, obviously, the results of the first vote. Obviously, the affirmative side had it 8-4. It'll be interesting to see what happens now. So we're gonna have a bit of a discussion now. This is where we'll have a short little podcast now, really, and we may bring you guys in for questions as well. So you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions of our panel. One of the burning questions that I had, and I want to pose to the panel, something that the Consul General said in that first episode and that we heard early on. If we lose the language, it will be very difficult to maintain the culture. Now, James Arkoudis, that was something that sort of spoke a little bit to what you were, counter to what you were sort of talking about. What do you say to that statement in particular? If we lose the language, it will be very difficult to maintain the culture.
I disagree for this reason. Because like I said, I don't think that the Greek culture is at risk. The Greek culture is the foundation of Western society.
And what is a Greek culture? Which is the Greek culture that it's not at risk? Define what is Greek culture in diaspora in order to see if it's in crisis without the language.
Yes. Well, the Greek culture in the diaspora is very, very close to the English, Anglo-Celtic, Anglo-Saxon culture that we live in. We are not necessarily the other here. The thing that made us the other was the fact that we couldn't speak English. Because in every other respect, I've always felt extremely comfortable in this culture. Because this culture educated me, has given me democracy, economic opportunity, freedom from hunger and oppression that my parents escaped from, which was in Greece. Over here, we found sanctuary and we found things that were alien on the one hand, but ideologically, we were a perfect fit. Our culture fit with the Anglo-Saxon culture, the Anglo-Celtic culture that was here. We struggled, of course we did. But underneath that, that's one of the reasons why we were successful. This is our inheritance. This is what the ancient Greeks imbued in the West, in the Enlightenment. I do not feel like I am the other here. I can fully participate. I can do what I want. I can choose my career. I was educated in public schools.
And I think the key thing is, what I go back to is the connection. So you're asking about the diaspora. We've seen from, as James on this side of the table has, from ancient to modern, Greek diasporas have not disappeared. In fact, they get stronger. We see, not pointing anyone out here in the audience, but our cities shut down on Greek National Day. There are festivals of Greek culture that span across not just language, and a lot of it is not in the Greek language, and that's because we need to stay connected. We are ambassadors of our culture, and that is far more important. If language becomes this has to be just language, we are in danger of becoming elitist.
We haven't said that. So none of us think that. And I'm trying to understand why the opposing team keeps bringing up this notion that we
because
think
the notion is Greek language essential?
But not
and
just,
our argument
but not
is
exclusive, right?
It's not essential.
Yeah, but
so
but that's
if
but
we
that's different.
say that Greek language is essential, right? We are shutting out a whole heap of people that think, okay, well, if it's essential to learn Greek language and I don't know it, am I Greek?
Yes.
Well, maybe let's have the opportunity for the affirmative side to respond to that. So, can you be Greek without the language? I guess, which is different to the motion. Let's be reminded.
Both Patricia and I have emphasised several times that you absolutely are Greek. It's not a question of whether someone is Greek or not. It's just the intensity with which they're able to identify strongly enough or authentically enough with their
So
Greekness.
if someone...
But let me just clarify, right? It's not a question of whether it's exclusive, right? So it's never just about being able to speak Greek. Of course it's not. Just that the rest of it is strengthened. It's enhanced, even via just the most simplistic understanding of the Greek language. Not about fluency, not about intermediate level, just enough to be able to grasp some of it.
There's two things that I want to touch on there just quickly. James, you mentioned during the course of the discussion a diminished or incomplete form of Greekness. Can you just sort of expand on that?
I'll give you an example. So I'm obsessed with Greek music, right? So I will go and see every Greek singer that comes and tours in Australia. And when I go to Greece, I care less for the islands, right? I just love Athens because of the bouzoukia and to be there every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the most recent Greek singer who visited Greece was a trap artist called Siddhartha. A phenomenal talent, in my opinion. Now, ordinarily when I go and see Greek singers in Australia, I'm one of the youngest people there. It was the complete reverse with Siddhartha. And so the crowd was full of teenagers and people in their 20s. And the whole time I was wondering, I wonder how many of you understand the lyrics. I hope you do, but I really hope they do. But
in fairness, not many people can understand trap.
No, but it's possible. Like, you know, this is not to denigrate my studies at Macquarie University, but my Greek vocabulary has been infinitely expanded, more so by my love of Greek music. Because every time I hear a lyric that I don't understand, I'll look it up. And so yes, those teens were having a fantastic time at the Siddhartha concert. They're Greek, undeniably Greek. But how much stronger would their experience have been if they understood what he was saying? If he didn't need to translate into English his instructions to the crowd to even put their hands in the air.
So is that a matter of opinion? Because those people would have felt the music. Yes. I listen to Spanish music. I don't speak Spanish.
And if you
and
did,
I loved it. And I love it. Does it make me Spanish? No. Do I feel more Spanish listening to it? No. The point is the language.
But you're not Spanish.
So where you're talking about
but you're not
the medium, we're talking about the Greek culture will survive because we are uniquely a multifaceted culture.
Every culture is multifaceted.
Where language
Name one culture that's not multifaceted.
There is
Name one.
a few. So
Name one.
I prefer not to because we're talking about Greek here.
Every culture is by definition multifaceted. Like that's
so what the motion today is, and the message I want to tell young people, and I can see there's students here from the university. I'm a mother, a working mother that's grown up in the diaspora. And Patricia, I can't agree with you more. The access for our children to learn Greek is so difficult in a country like this that I feel the way we keep our culture is a little bit. Even a little bit. I feel bad that my kids aren't fluent in Greek, but it was so difficult for me as a working mum to be driving around to try to do things. And people that know me know. There's nothing anyone can say that I don't feel Greek. But I agree with you, it's difficult. So we've got to give opportunities for them to express themselves in many ways. Through music, I agree. We are multifaceted, and that's our uniqueness, and that's why our culture has survived from Byzantine to now and survives in diasporas all over the world. Because we embrace everything, philosophy, and we're ambassadors and we should embrace it, and we should be saying to our kids, it's not essential. There's many parts of our culture. Come close, join us.
Great point. Got a quick question for James and Theodora. How essential so you're saying it's not essential to learn the Greek language. What about the people in Greece? Is it essential for them? So if it's not essential, do you think they shouldn't learn the Greek language and speak English.
Absolutely.
And more importantly, it's a 5,000-6,000-year-old language. Do you think that'll start to diminish? Which would be a big shame, in my view, if we don't at least attempt to learn the language.
Look, Greece is a nation and it has its national language, and it's absolutely crucial that they maintain that. Right? And that is very, very, very important, because that's the homeland. They live there. They make their life there. But if you're telling me about what's happening, well, essentially, I think the whole world will eventually go back to hieroglyphs if we keep going with the phone, right? All languages are at risk on that level. And Greek has changed. Greek changes. It's a continuously evolving language, and it's...
Like all languages.
Yeah, and like every language.
Like every language.
But James, I want to answer your question about a not multi-faceted culture and society, North Korea, to name one.
But even the North Korean culture is multifaceted. We might not like it, but it's multifaceted.
No. In what way is it multifaceted? Because strictly controlled, it has no dimensionality.
You're referring to the system of government, right? You're referring to the system of government. That's not culture. Culture is language. Culture is dress. Culture is physical appearance. It's cuisine. It's customs. It's traditions. Like North Korea has all of that. We might not like it, but it has all of that.
Yeah, we agree with that, and that's why language is one of those things.
And we agree.
And that's what we agree on.
Yeah, we
that
agree.
language is not essential. It's one of those things.
Yeah,
it's an essential one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's simply the point of difference in the debate. Is what is the essentiality? Whether it is essential to be a Greek speaker, and that's the argument. On everything else, I think we pretty much, agree. But what I say is, and like I said, my point of view is that yes, okay, language it's important, but is it essential? If you had to do without it, and my analogy is like making arnika pama, right? Is it the arni or is it the tomatoes, right? I think it's the tomatoes, because our culture is so powerful in so many other respects, and the ideas, the power of the Greek culture is in those huge ideas. Platonic forms, Aristotelian logic. Science is the really big one. Right? The invention of science is what has transformed the world. Now that is something that's not even written in Greek, that's written in mathematics, in Greek script, but mathematics is not a language, a cultural, a language in the sense of, communicating daily activities or ideas. In that respect, has its own language. That is what being Greek is about. I feel an obligation when I go into the world to be the best I can be, to do something like my mother used to say to me, become a useful person in society, whatever you do.
Because you're a human being, not because you're Greek, right?
No. There are other cultures where that does not exist.
Sure, but the motive here is not specifically because you're Greek, right? The motive is here because you've been brought up with certain values as a human being.
That's right, a humanistic value which comes from Greek ethos and spirit, the Greek spirit. Because there are cultures, and I've seen them, I've lived them, I spent 10 years in Africa. I can assure you, you can go to the Frafra tribe in Bolgatanga and they will not understand any of those concepts that you're talking about. You will be like a Martian that landed and tried to explain to them
I understand
to do the good or to help your neighbour.
And on that point, I try to be good. I try. And what drives me and what I drive my kids is that idea of freedom, that we are descendants of freedom and democracy. I teach that to my kids.
And I applaud that.
And I teach them that because, and that drives me.
That's genuinely...
And the whole concept of the good is an Aristotelian concept.
We could go on forever with this, but
Well
look,
done, James.
there's a lot of quiet talk in the audience, particularly on this side. So I'm expecting there may be a few comments. The microphone's going around. Nick,
Well, do we have any questions? We're opening it to the floor now.
open to the floor.
Vasily, first one.
I've got a question for the affirmative, question for the negative. Firstly, for the affirmative, you say there are no communities outside in the diaspora that you don't see them not speak Greek. Yet I would say that the Greek communities at university that's not essential, and it's not a focus at all of speaking Greek. We, especially me at UTS, and the Greek societies at unis, our culture is not based on the language. We keep the culture alive outside the language, with food, with dance, with music, and I don't see the culture essential in those societies, and those are the Greek communities at the universities. And people feel welcome and feel at home in those societies. And I just wanted to, ask that question.
That's amazing that what you do at the universities. I think it's a choice, the culture that you are forming at the universities with dancing, parties, food, barbecues, and that's amazing. And I joined the MAGA activities. But as Theodora said, it's freedom. It's what you have chosen. As an academic, as a mother, and as a person who migrated to Australia 15 years ago, I cannot imagine a diasporic identity without language. We can't debate on the level of using a language in a diaspora. This is something that we can debate, but a culture without a language in diaspora, we can call it something else, but not a culture, because it's something that we choose and we define. So it's like saying, we define that the culture that we use at UTS, at Macquarie University, and other universities is parties, food, barbecues, festivals, films with subtitles in English. And this is what we are forming. So it's something that we decide to form. It's not how it should be from my point of view.
Just imagine, I'm not sure what your level of Greek is, right? But whatever it is, just imagine how much stronger, more intense your experience of your on-campus activities would be if you happen to be not fluent in Greek, but even just at the basic level, how much that would enrich your understanding of the activities that you commendably engage in.
And of course, we don't mean to use Greek in your parties that you organize. Yeah.
For the negative, you say it's not essential, yet I feel like if I didn't partake in the Greek societies and I was a Greek Australian and I went to Greece for the first time and did not speak the language, I would feel like an alien in that country without knowing the language. So how would you go about that issue of feeling alienated in a country that you do not understand the language?
Well, I think that's a good question. It's a great question, right? And it's a question my kids faced when they went to Greece and they felt, gee, we want to learn Greek so we can feel like we're part of it. That happens in any country you go to. Go to France, everyone wants to speak French when they go to France and order their baguettes and whatever. The difference for you is that you've got this Greek background and you're feeling a guilt of, I should be talking this language. It's my papus, it's my yayas, it's my great yayas. It goes back. And it's that guilt. Or else you'll go to a different country and you're fine with your Lonely Planet guide and you'll get along. In that way, and we've said, is learn Greek? Yes. If that makes you feel better when you travel, yes, learn it, immerse yourself. But I wouldn't even say that just for Greece. Learn French when you go to France. Learn the language. But the question here today, and what I don't want to happen, is for a new generation to feel ostracised because they're told by someone that they're not Greek enough, or their Greek is weak because they don't have the Greek language. You have plenty of mediums. And if you feel you go to Greece and you want to speak Greek and you want to learn Greek, mate, that's what we're all aiming for, to get to those universities and learn Greek. Go for it. But I'm also of a big opinion, learn other languages as well. But what you feel when you go there, sort of a bit of a guilt thing that, why am I speaking this language? And that's a personal exploration. But don't feel less Greek.
Is it our duty as Greeks to honour our parents and grandparents and whatnot by learning the language?
If you have the opportunity, absolutely you should. Like saying, if you go to Greece, and the reality of going to Greece now is English will get you just fine. You'll be fine. You won't need to speak a word of Greek if you don't want to, right? Because in Europe, they do encourage the multilingual approach and they have a much more, wider exchange of that. But if you're in Greece and you have the opportunity to pick up even a few words, yeah, absolutely, you've got to do it. Because it does make you feel more connected. And that's where, someone like...
That's interesting.
Lawrence Durrell talks about the spirit of place. Right? When you're in Greece, you are imbued also with something else there, the spirit of Greece, the actual physical landscape. And that's also a very important cultural thing to explore if you get the opportunity.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Vasily. Great questions. Anyone else got a question? Here we go. We've got one over here.
Μιλάω ελληνικά, αλλά δεν είναι Ελλήνα.
Wow.
Μελετώ ελληνικά, καταλαβαίνω τι είναι φιλότιμο, αλλά δεν νιώθω Ελληνίδα. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
It's actually a great question. So, speaks Greek. Would you classify people as Greek if they weren't born in the country or don't have Greek DNA?
First of all, I don't like classifying people. Identity is a concept which is very strict, but the feeling that you have, that you feel Greek and you speak Greek and you understand the concept of philotimo, it makes you Greek. And I think you are an excellent example for the Greek diaspora. Yeah.
Well done, thank you.
There's a fantastic book that I'm happy to share the details of. It's one of the best books I've written by a gentleman in Africa who went to Greece for a 3-month study trip while he was in high school, while he was in university, and loved it so much he never left. And he ended up becoming a scholar, and he wrote a book on why it's important for Greeks to feel Greek. And if you read his book in Greek, when you see him speak at conferences in Greek, there's zero doubt that he's anything but truly Greek, despite not having it in his blood, right? But that's not what we're discussing today. Today we're discussing whether it's essential to Greek identity as one of a mosaic of elements that constitute Greek identity.
Any other questions? Yes, here we go. Out the back.
Hi, I'm just curious to ask all of you. I can't help but feel that there's at least 3 types of Greek language. You've got classical Greek, which is used epistemologically. You've got Kathareusa Greek, which is closely linked to classical Greek, but in a way moved away from it, used in religious text. And you've got folk lay Greek, which is used in, folk music, Rebetiko, for example. So which of those 3 versions linguistically of Greek do you think is the essential to form identity?
Imagine saying classical Greek is the essential one. Everyone would like to kill me. Modern Greek, of course, the language that we are using nowadays. If you learn classical Greek, because my first degree is classical Greek studies, so I know classical Greek, Latin. It's like a story that evolves classical Greek, then modern Greek. So there are, of course, roots in the words that we use in modern Greek, in classical Greek. And for me, you can't separate classical Greek from modern Greek. As you said, there are 2 different types of the same language. And I have students who study modern Greek at Macquarie University at the same time studying classical Greek. And they find the connection between the two different forms of the same language. And it's amazing for them, mainly cognitively, it's amazing they find the connections. So to answer your question, of course modern Greek is the language that we should, that the people in the Greek diaspora, it's good to learn and use within the community and when they travel to Greece.
I have a question that sort of follows on that. And I mean, most of the people that are born in Australia in a Greek diaspora family I think will understand this. Bastardized Greek. I mean, how do we feel collectively about terms like the Greeklish, like Rufi and Karo and all of these things? Does that classify as an attempt to speak Greek in this day and age? Would that be acceptable to say you're having a go?
I've debated this question in my head quite a bit. No, because You've
touched a nerve.
No, it hasn't touched a nerve because, again, it goes back to it's more important to be connected to your culture, and language is a medium. So we've seen this wave of ethnic comedians using this Greek English thing that we identify with, that made us uniquely Greek Australian. Even when we go to Greece, and we've all done it, and said, "Θα πάω στο κάρο," and they're all looking at us like horse and cart. That was the first time I came across that that's a horse and cart. I didn't know that. My father-in-law went and he was born in Greece and he was referring to ta Fensia, right? But there's a place for that. And the place is that our Greekness and our Greek identity comes through various mediums. One of those mediums, which we haven't even touched on, is the expression of theatre and art and music and how that Greekness is expressed. And that's what these young artists and all of these, I won't mention names, we're not advertising, are doing. They're connecting us to be proud that we grew up different, but you know what? That was an expression of our freedom, and that is key to us, and that's what they're doing. So I don't have an issue with it. Is it wrong? Yes, it's wrong. Should it be taught better? Yes, it should be taught better. But we can still laugh about it, and we can still enjoy it, and it definitely doesn't make us less Greek. It actually makes us more Greek Australian.
Thoughts on that one, guys?
To karo or ifriza or other words like this are amazing. As I found them amazing because actually what your parents, grandparents did, they took the Greek article and the Greek ending and used the English word. So if you see cognitively, it's amazing. Also regarding the Greek identity, the Australian Greek identity, using these words, again, it's amazing. It's what characterizes people in Australia with Greek background, with Greek roots, using these words. So if you ask me, continue to use these words and
So
I didn't expect that, actually.
My experience of that was it was a very particular time and place for it. Like my parents, to flori, friza, all those things. There was no psiyo. They didn't have one, so they didn't know what it was, right? So that's what happened. But what's happened now is, and I can see this as one of the very few positive effects of multiculturalism, is that newer generations actually, when they speak Greek, they speak it better. They know. My nephews and great nieces, they correct those. That was a particular time and place. My parents came here, my dad came here in 1958, and that was very, very common. But as we've gone along, there has been a greater awareness of that, and these things have slowly come out. We've gone back to a more correct view. So I don't know, but that's just my personal experience.
Soon red brick Greek homes with white columns will soon be heritage listed as well.
Well, that's happening in the area where I live. That's what they wanted to do. That's what they wanted to do in Kensington.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Gianniotis. Step up.
Slowly start to wrap it up now, and we'll move it over to the vote. But Panayotis?
Yeah, we should. Comment. Ancient Greeks did not think in terms of DNA or bloodlines. Who was Greek to the ancient Greeks? Someone who spoke the language cleanly, without an accent. Someone with a Greek education, in other words.
Also, we were characterised as people when, the hordes from the north came down, that we were clean-shaven and bathed and had public baths. So there was a lot of things that identified ancient Greeks as ancient Greeks. I'm
talking about themselves.
Yeah.
Amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You could have been born on the edge of the Black Sea in Pontus. You could have been born in Iberia, today Spain. All their cities sent delegates athletes to
the Olympic Games.
Yes. The defining aspect of Hellenism was your city, your home, your metropoli, was it part of the Olympic Games? Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we talk about language, for me, obviously, my vote. With music, I was on the SAGS committee. Yeah, okay.
30 years ago.
Go on, out yourself.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yes. More than 30 years ago. When we talk about language, do you guys, when you listen to Greek music, do you sing in Greek? Is that not using a Greek language? It's not just everyday speech. My daughter is in a couple of choreftika, a couple of dance groups. One of them is the Pondians. And the teacher forces them to learn not just how to sing in Greek, but specifically the dialect of Pontus. They don't say tikanis, they say deftas. Which Patricia Koromvokis says here, gati thakus. Alright? They don't say sagapo, they say lelevose. So it's not se agapo, it's agapo se, which is quite ancient. So, there are many forms of using the Greek language, is basically my point.
That's right, but I'd just like to go to the point about what makes a Greek, and that was my point about Demaratus, the Persian king who defected to Persia and was advising Xerxes, and he said that there were 4 elements, and one of them was blood. So it's the ema, and it's also the homologos, thriskia, και έθιμα. And they were the 4 elements that he defines. So language is only one of those. Yeah, and the blood is important. And now, with DNA testing, and it's a contentious issue, but you have people like the people that were in Syria who do a DNA test, discover they've got Greek genes, and then want to participate in that.
Fantastic. Well, as you can probably hear, we're in the throes of the final vote. Now, are there any final comments that anyone wants to make before the guillotine comes down?
I would like to extend, before the guillotine comes down, our friend, δεν είσαι Ελληνίδα όμως μιλάς ελληνικά. It's people like you that I am an ambassador for, and to welcome you to our culture and say thank you for honouring our culture.
Any other final comments, guys, from the affirmative side? Have we said everything? Is it all said and done?
I just want to thank everyone because I didn't do that.
Yes, I didn't either. I'd like to thank everyone as well. Thank you.
I think it's been interesting, and everybody's time is precious, and appreciate everybody coming here to listen and participate.
Well, it has to be said, though, that the spirit in which this has been conducted tonight and the way that you guys have debated and been part of this sort of tradition, I can't thank you guys enough for being part of it, because I feel as though we need more of this, to be able to entertain the thought without necessarily having to accept it. I think it's a crucial part of what it means to be Greek. It's part of, our cultural inheritance, I think. So, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this, being part of the very first one. Again, couldn't be prouder of this group. So much brain power, you could power the city with it. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
And on that note, Nick, you have the final results.
Well, the votes are in. So interesting results.
Okay.
So when you all walked in, you all voted. So we had 8 votes for yes and 4 for no. And now that we've heard our debater speak, the result is...
Moonlight.
Give me a drum roll or something. It's actually, would you believe, there was 6 for yes and 6 for no.
Wow.
It's actually a tie.
Straight down the middle. And on that bombshell, I think that's a fantastic way for it to finish.
It is. There you go.
Okay.
But look, I must admit, it was great listening to you all speak, and
Yes.
I got a lot out of it as well. But I think we all sort of agree a little bit is still essential from hearing you guys speak.
Absolutely.
Having no Greek at all, no words, I think no one agreed on that. But even learning a few words like philotimo and stuff, if you didn't know that word and the meaning of it, doesn't matter who you are, you wouldn't be able to feel and express that. So I think we all agree on that term. So what do you think, Tom?
Absolutely. We're very fortunate to have the kind of brains that we have in this room. Again, the academics, and again, the lawyers, again, trying to argue or defend the indefensible, as we've said so many times. I think
we all got a history lesson as well out of that too.
We did, absolutely. Again, we're just very fortunate to have these guys with us, and to have them part of this community. We hope you guys will come back again in future, and we discuss something, another important topic.
I think you should make the academics do the negative and we'll do their bit. We'll swap it around.
Definitely.
Make them sweat a bit, eh?
Love it.
No, well done. Look, thank you to the crowd as well. Great question.
Well, guys, Ouzo Talk at outlook.com is the email. Follow us on social media at Ouzo Talk and at Ouzo_Talk. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Ouzo Talk is produced, written and presented by Tom Skolarikas and Nika Thanasiou. Our theme music is written and played by Peter Apostolidis, with additional music from George Kalapidis and Bouzouki legend Thanasis Polykatriotis.
Ακολουθήστε μας στο Soundees, στο Spotify, στο Apple Podcasts και στο Google Podcasts.